Hey, what's up guys? So in this video, we're going to talk about how to solve SaaS churn forever. This is going to be a step-by-step guide. And this video is divided up into two parts. Part number one, we're going to talk about the main causes of churn so you can identify what your churn problem is specifically, because not all churn problems are created equally. And then we're going to talk about how to solve each one of those problems specifically. So this will probably be a longer video. There's not going to be any editing. There's not going to be any effects on this. It's literally just me going through a document that took me hours to put together. And if you don't know me, my name is Alex. I run Flywheel, another SaaS company that helps other SaaS companies reduce churn automatically and increase upsells. So if you're interested in doing any of that, hit the first link down below in the description to get set up. Okay, so what causes churn? And this is going to be kind of a combination of me reading and then just going off in little tangents that have, or I guess not tangents because they're going to have something to do with the topic. But first thing we're going to talk about is what causes churn. Okay, so before we dive into how to get rid of churn, so how to solve churn forever, we must first understand what causes churn. Okay, so we need to understand that churn is fundamentally a value problem. This is a quote by Warren Buffett. Price is what you pay, value is what you get. And so for your churn to not be an issue, we need a value to be greater than price consistently. Because if you're in the SaaS game, odds are you're a subscription-based SaaS. And so if you don't have consistent revenue, if you don't have recurring revenue from your SaaS, then it's not going to be a very valuable software company. And so that's why we need consistent value. We need recurring value so that people can pay us on a monthly basis. Okay? And so I like dividing the causes of churn into 4 different problems. First, we have the product problem, then we have the education problem, then we have the messaging problem, and then we have the price problem. Okay, so I'm going to describe each one of these, and hopefully, as I'm describing them, you can be like, oh yeah, that's my problem. If not, I'll walk through how you can figure out what your problem is specifically. So no worries. So I guess just keep up with the explanations because they're going to be helpful. So number one, a product problem. What does this mean? This means your product can mean one of two things. This means your product is simply not good enough, or your product isn't sticky enough, okay? Meaning it's not needed. It's not a must-have. It's a nice-to-have. And so if we're talking about your product not being good enough, the symptoms of this are going to be something along the lines of your users try your platform out, and then they churn very quickly, so your month one churn is very high because they go to another, they don't like it, there's too many bugs, and then they just go on to another platform. What that means is they need whatever you're promising, but they don't need it from you, or they wanted to get it from you, but they're not getting it from you, and so they're going to someone else, right? This is honestly, it sucks to just say, okay, yeah, my product sucks, but this is one of the easiest ones to solve if you have a decent dev team or someone on your team that can code, right? So this is typically okay, you have bugs, you have bad customer support or no customer success, maybe you have missing features, etc. Okay, but the system here is someone tries out your tool and they churn quickly because they spot some things that they don't like, and then they go to someone else. That's the important part, that they go to someone else. Not that they stop using products in your category, but that they just go to someone else. So the example would be, maybe you are running cold email with Instantly, and then you run into something that you don't like about Instantly, and you go to Smart Lead. That doesn't mean you stop doing cold email. That just means there was a bug or something, there was a missing feature, or you didn't like the customer support on Instantly, and so you went with another tool, okay? That's a product problem. It's honestly one of the easiest ones to solve, so it's not that bad if that's where you're at. Now, the second second reason for a product problem can be that the problem just isn't sticky enough, okay? Meaning your product isn't needed. You don't have product market fit because you probably don't solve a real problem. Or it's not a huge problem, at least not a huge problem for the people that you're selling it to. And I know that can get confusing, but we're also going to talk about churn because of an ICP problem that has to do with messaging, with having the wrong messaging. But essentially, if your product isn't sticky, then you're going to have churn. That's just kind of a game. That's just kind of how the game works. And here, you do kind of have to be careful. Because, for example, we have, and this also gets into the ICP problem. But, for example, or actually, let's just continue. I'll talk about that later. If your thing isn't sticky, meaning people don't need it, you're a nice to have instead of a must have. Okay. Now, what I was getting at is that there's some companies that just have built-in churn. Think of, I don't know, someone that, like a SaaS company that helps people land jobs. If your product is any good, it's going to actually help people find jobs pretty quickly. And if they have a job, then you don't have anything to sell them because you help them land jobs, but you just help them. So it's churn on results, right? Or maybe you just, like, churn on results, structural churn. That's just kind of like, it's a feature, not a bug. That's just kind of a feature of the game you decided to play by building out that company. Seasonal products as well. That kind of goes into this. And again, like, your product not being sticky enough, it's you just kind of have to think about it before you even start your company and think like, okay, if I'm going like, okay, let's say you have two routes, the sticky or not sticky. I'm just going to give two examples. You can decide whether you want to build, let's say in your head, you can either build like an email sending tool, like Loops, like Customer.io, or you can build like Bento or like whatever email sending tool, or you can build another LinkedIn outreach tool. Which one do you think is going to have less churn? Well, obviously, and these again are features, not bugs, because obviously the email service provider, meaning like email marketing for your users, is going to have way less churn than a LinkedIn outreach tool. However, I can pretty much guarantee that you're going to have a way easier chance, like a way easier job finding leads and finding people to actually pay you money for the LinkedIn outreach tool compared to the email service provider. So these are just sometimes features, not bugs. So you just want to think about what game you want to go into. Sometimes like, hey, that's just the name of the game. Typically, go-to-market companies are sitting at over 10% monthly churn, which is pretty high. Typically, an email an email service provider will have net negative churn. They'll have like NRR of over 100%, right? So it's just, but it's harder to get users for that compared to something that will get you more users by using it. Why? Because it's an easier sell. There's obvious product market fit with something that, or like the market always wants to get more customers, more users. And so a lot more people will do that. It's a harder sell. Plus, because it's hard to churn from it, it's hard to get users to churn from like your competitors, if we're talking about the ESP. So here, with your product not being sticky enough, it's a double-edged sword. It's either, it's really just what game do you want to play, okay? But if you're building something you've never talked to users at all, and you just build something that you wanted, and you don't even know if the market's gonna, like, if the market doesn't want it, then that's just, it's not sticky. There's no product market fit. People don't want it, okay? So that's another situation completely. If that's the case, then I'm gonna walk through how to solve that. But it's really, you just kind of have to talk to users. That's really what it comes down to. If it's a turn on results or it's more of a feature, not a bug, then you kind of just have to figure out, or we'll walk through how to reduce churn as much as possible. But it's really hard to get like an outreach tool, for example, almost impossible, I'd say, to net negative churn unless you're essentially only targeting like Fortune 500 companies. Unless you go enterprise, that's really the only way to have posit or like NRR of over 100 in the outreach space. Okay, so that is the product problem. I know that was a long explanation, but I just wanted to make sure we have everything and we're all on the same page. So not enough, or not good enough. That's one. And then your product not being sticky enough. Your product not being sticky enough can be a couple different things. Number one, you just built something that no one wants. You have no product market fit. The other one is churn being a feature, not a bug, because of the like service that you provide. Okay. Now we have, or the second churn problem can be an education problem. Okay. Meaning you get users, they like, there's no bugs. They're not churning because of bugs. They're not churning because there's not, like, because you don't have a feature. They're not churning because you don't have good customer support, but they're churning because they don't know how to use the platform, so they're not getting value. Okay? This can also be an ICP problem. We're going to talk about that here shortly, and how that can get solved. But essentially it's, okay, I don't know how to use the platform. Like, this is the platform I need. It's just the platform is too confusing. I don't know how to use it. I'm not giving enough like tutorials. I'm not showing people how to use it enough. And so they just go. Okay? That's the second problem. Education problem. People don't know how to use the platform, so they don't get value. Then we have the messaging problem. Now, this is very common. You're setting the wrong expectations, okay? And so people think they're not getting value, but they are. And we'll walk through some examples. But essentially, I'll walk through examples here shortly when we talk about how to fix this problem. But again, you're setting the wrong expectations. Maybe you're doing marketing with a case study. People hop on. Let's say and I have this example further down the document, but let's say, again, you're a cold email tool, and you are doing your ads show one specific user that had 10+% reply rate. Someone buys because of that ad. They hop on your platform, and now they're getting a 4% reply rate, and they're like, dude, what the fuck? Like, it's less than half of what I thought I was getting. But they don't know, like, because they've never done outreach before, that 4% to a cold audience is an amazing reply rate. And so they are getting value, but they think they're not getting value, which is arguably worse than not getting value, because they actually are getting value. They just don't know it, which is a crazy thing to say, but it happens a ton. It's like I've seen, and this happened like with our previous company, Drippy. I would hop on, like, someone would want to churn, and then this was like years ago. But someone would want to churn. I'd hop on a call with them when we were first getting started, and then they'd like show me their dashboard, and they'd see like, dude, like 5%, 7.5% reply rates. I'm what's going on? What do you? And they're like, oh no, well, I saw your videos and you had like 10%, 20%, and I was like, well, yeah, but 5%, 7.5% is crazy good. So sometimes people just don't know the benchmarks, and so that's when the messaging problem comes into play. Number 4 is a price problem. So this is essentially your price is too high for the value they're getting. Their price to value discrepancy is too big. So for example, let's say with a specific plan that you sell, users can, like, realistically, or the majority of users can only make like, I don't know, $100, but you're charging $1,000, right? So it just makes no logical business sense for someone to pay you that much for what you're providing. Okay. So these are the 4 main churn problems. Now I'll walk through how to reduce churn. Okay. Before we get into that, we really need to identify what causes churn in your company specifically. So either just go through this section again and be like, okay, yeah, this is what I have, or this is what the problem with my company. Maybe it's a combination of a couple. That happens a lot. So it's like, okay, we have a messaging problem, plus an education problem, plus we have a bunch of bugs, and my product just isn't sticky because it's an outreach tool, right? So it can be that. It can be a bunch of different things. So just kind of go back through that. Or if you can't figure it out, or if you're sitting here, you're like, dude, I have no fucking idea which one of these is my problem, then I have news for you. This is what I would do if that was my situation, okay? So just try to get on calls with your most recently churned customers, okay? And you want to do anything you can to hop on a call with these guys. So email them, Twitter DM them using Drippy, connect with them on LinkedIn. Just do call them up, do whatever you can to hop on a 10-minute call with them, 10, 15, whatever. Like, offer them some sort of gift card, offer them whatever you need to do to get them on a call, and then ask questions like this. So, why did you churn? Did you move to another tool? Did you go to a competitor? That's going to give you some great insights. Was it too expensive? What went wrong? What type of results did you achieve? Was anything about our platform confusing? Did you ever reach out to support? How often were you logging into your account? What features were you using most? What would you need to change? I can't talk now. This is literally the best question. What would need to change for you to come back to our platform? Like, that's a huge one, okay? Because if they move to a competitor, it's probably because, like, again, a feature or like bugs that you have or whatever, and they'll tell you. And so that's a huge one. I'm assuming, or it really just depends. but a lot of the time they'll give you like a fake answer. So sometimes you have to dig deeper into what they're saying. Because sometimes people don't want to, I guess, like, they think they're going to insult you if they're like, dude, your platform is just ass. And so they're probably not going to say that. Most people are like nice, and they're not going to say that if they're hopping on the call. So you kind of do want to dig deeper into that last question. Okay. Also, if you already have them on the call, just try to identify who they are as a customer. So for example, figure out what industry they serve, like what type of company they are, like, are they an agency? Are they a software company? Are they like, what type of agency are they? Are they like an e-commerce? Like, who are they? Then headcount, that's also a great one. And then revenue if you can. Typically, if you have a headcount, like, you can or I guess now with AI, it's hard to guess, but you'll have a good idea of kind of if they're SMB, mid-market, or enterprise, right? Or like VSMB, very small. And then once you've interviewed at least 50 people, you can take all those call transcripts and throw them into an LLM and have it analyze and give you the most common churn reasons in order from most to least mentioned, okay? If you do this, you'll have a pretty good understanding of who's churning and why they're churning. And once you know exactly what's going on and like what people are telling you, then you'll actually be able to identify like, okay, I have a product problem, I have a messaging problem, I have a pricing problem, like whatever that may be. And then we can actually go into how to solve these. All right, so first we're going to talk about how to solve the product problem. Okay, so just to refresh your memory, if we have a product problem, that means your product is simply not good enough, meaning you have bugs, you have CS issues, you have missing features, etc. It's not easy to use or not something that you want to keep using, and so they go to one of your competitors, meaning they need a tool like yours, they just didn't like yours, okay? So that's number one. Number two is it's not sticky enough, meaning no product market fit, your thing isn't sticky, people don't need it, you have a nice to have instead of a must have. Keep in mind, there are companies that are churn on results that have structural churn, or it's a seasonal product, so again, like structural churn. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier. So I'll just read this. So some SaaS companies have built-in churn. That can be from the nature of the product itself, like AI resume builders, like I was talking about, or because of the nature of the ICP. If this is the case, there's only so much you can do about churn. Like, you'll never have, like, again, a software that helps people with outreach and targets SMBs or VSMBs is never going to have like NRR of over 100. Okay. These businesses can still make loads of money though. But it's just way harder to do so. So for example, if you look at school, they target beginner business owners. But like I was saying, it just takes a lot more time and money. And so in these cases, it's important to segment users and measure churn by segment. Great example, this is probably the best example of this that I can give, is Clay.com. So Clay.com has I think they put out this stat late, or it was like Q4 of 2025. They said they have 0% churn on enterprise clients, so probably NRR of over 100 on enterprise clients. But, and this isn't public, but if I had to guess, like they've never talked about churn on the rest of their users, but if I had to guess, I'd say it's probably around like 10 to 15% monthly, which is high, right? But again, it's just the type of people that they help with the type of like service that they provide, okay? So it's a combination of what their tool does with who they're selling it to, which is why, again, if you have one of these businesses, you're like, churn is baked in. It's a feature, not a bug. And so that's why it's important to measure churn based off of different segments, okay? Great example, once again, Clay, enterprise, 0% churn. Everyone else probably has like 10 to 15% churn. Okay, so the solution, how do we fix the product problem if that's why you're having the majority of your churn? And we're here, I guess this is obvious, but just to make sure we're on the same page, we're talking about, we're not talking about involuntary churn, we're talking about voluntary churn. Okay, so this is people that like explicitly want to cancel their subscription with your platform. So the solution is, number one, if you have bugs, just stop everything that your dev team is doing and fix the bugs, okay? So this means if this is the main constraint of the business. So if this is like, if you're not growing because of churn and it's because of bugs, then this is the main constraint of the business. This is where all your focus should be. So stop shipping new features and just focus on fixing the product. And that's why I was saying that this is honestly like, it sucks to know that your product isn't good, but it's one of the easiest ones to solve because you know exactly what you need to do. You just need to get rid of bugs because you have a bunch of people coming through the door, but people are leaving because you have bugs. Okay, so just fix the bugs. Stop worrying about new features. Stop worrying about anything else that isn't fixing bugs. You just need to fix the platform. Okay, so that's number one. If you have missing features, this one is a little bit more complex. Reason being, or here, I'll just read what I wrote down here. So the thing with missing features is that you can't say yes to everything that your users want. Okay, now I know counterintuitive maybe to some of you listening to this, but that's just the truth. You can't say yes to everything. Sometimes you have to let some fires burn. Depending on the stage you're at, you have to be careful with what you're saying yes to. You have to be super selective. And a good exercise to run for this is the following, okay? So survey your users and ask them the following 3 questions. Number 1, what feature, if it was removed today, would you get pissed off at for us removing, okay? Probably the wording that I used there was confusing, but okay. Essentially, the question is, if I were to remove one feature, what feature would you get pissed off for us removing is essentially the question that you want to ask. Reason being, this will allow you to know what most of your users are actually using from the platform, okay? So if this is an outreach tool and you have like a CRM, you have an inbox, you have whatever, but you're an outreach tool, if you can't send messages, that's probably the one, right? So that's what you need again, just so you know kind of how people are using the platform. Then number 2, what feature, if it was removed today, would you not care about? So what are you not using? And then what feature do you think we're missing that you'd use on a daily or weekly basis? So this will kind of give you an idea of what people want. And so if you have this in mind and you're dead set on okay, my users, for the most part, the core function of my tool is to send outreach messages. And then I have this dude that wants this very specific feature on the CRM. And I have data and I'm like, okay, people don't care that much about the CRM, but there's this one dude. You can sometimes just let that fire burn. Why? Because it's gonna take you so much, it's gonna take you so many resources and time to actually go in and do that thing. But if you do that for every single feature request that you get, you're simply not going to get anywhere. And then what ends up happening is if you just say yes to every single feature request that any user wants, then you're just going to have a bunch of different features that people it's just going to be very one-off scenarios, and it just ends up being a mess, and you don't want your SaaS tool to be confusing, okay? And so that's why it's important to ask these questions so you have an idea of okay, if a lot of people are if going back to the outreach tool example, everyone used this outreach tool to send cold emails or Twitter DMs or LinkedIn DMs, whatever. And then I get this feature request of something that has to do with that. And you know that everyone's going to every single one of your users uses that. So it's okay, this makes a lot more sense. And that's probably a higher priority than something to fix, I don't know, inviting team members or something like that. So it's just knowing if you have a very good idea of what these responses are from your clients, then it'll be way easier to prioritize, okay? And you're just going to prioritize better, and it's just going to be a way smoother ride, okay? So this will give you a good understanding of why your users use your platform specifically. And again, you just have to be careful to not build something that only one user is asking for that everyone else won't need or won't use, okay? So super important there. If it is that your CS just sucks ass, then you just have to improve your CS, okay? Or maybe you have to improve or we'll get into improving onboarding, but you just have to improve your customer support, okay? Improve response times. This is probably the biggest one. So you can tell how good a SaaS company is by how quickly their CS replies with a human, not with an AI, because everyone fucking hates getting replies from AI. So that's going to be the biggest one. If your response times on average are 24 hours, if you can get that to under 5 minutes, you're going to be very well off, okay? You can also offer calls. I've seen people love that. We do that with Drippy. So it's dude, no one else is doing it. And you can hop on you're paying someone $100 and their CS team is offering to hop on calls. It's a great differentiating factor. So offering calls, even one-on-one calls, if you can do it, it's amazing. Send Loom videos and then just have amazing training. Okay. So if that's the situation there, then that's if you need to improve CS and people just don't like your product because of CS, then this is what you can do. Okay. Now, moving on to the education problem. Okay. So to refresh, the education problem is they don't know how to use the platform, so they're not getting value. They're not getting ongoing value, so you're not getting ongoing customers. You don't have well-placed training videos on your platform in education. So people simply don't know how to use your platform. Like, you don't have good docs. There's no you have no understanding of where your users get stuck. You simply have no clue of what's confusing about your platform. And this is a funny one because, and here I essentially just did like a whisper flow thing. But this is like, sometimes founders are a little delusional, is what I've found, because obviously they've spent so much time like building their tool and so much time building their onboarding, and they've seen the interface so many times that they think it's like the most obvious thing in the world. And like, that happens to me too. Like, that happens to everyone. And so sometimes you can get delusional and be like just think that your onboarding is perfect. And this recently happened with one of our Flywheel users, where he was like, oh yeah, no, it's like super straightforward. It's super easy, et cetera, et cetera. And then I go through it and I'm like, dude, I have no fucking clue what this means or what this means. And then he explains it. He's like, oh yeah, well that I can see how that's gonna be. Like, yeah, like obviously, but since you built it, it's like easy for you, or you just think that it's easy for everyone. But if it's for someone's first time looking at it, then it's obviously not going to be as easy for them compared to you when it's your 1,000th time looking at it and you built it. Okay, so that's just something to be aware of. You need to, again, like, know where users are getting stuck, know what's confusing about your platform, have really good docs, have well-placed training videos, and help users get ongoing value so that you get ongoing customers. All right, so what is the solution to the education problem? So there's a bunch of things. We're going to divide this up into two different, and we're also going to talk about the ICP problem here under the education problem. And so there's two main things. Number one, we need to focus on activation. And then number two, we need to make sure that we are giving users ongoing value while they're paying, which is what most companies forget about completely. Like, while users are users, companies will maybe just throw in like a CS team that they quickly put together and isn't even that well trained, and then they'll throw in a bunch of stuff into the activation, like a bunch of email flows. So this will be the welcome flow, the onboarding flow, the free trial to paid conversion flow, drop-off sequences, which we will get into here in a minute, the paid user flow, flows for users to see value, onboarding calls, right? So this is all stuff you can do to increase activation, which is going to decrease churn, meaning people are activated, people know how to use the platform, right? That's why it's the education problem. And so a lot of people focus on the activation stuff and then do nothing down here. But for the activation stuff, if you don't have anything set up, or maybe you do, but with this in mind, you can see that maybe you are missing some things. You typically want to have a welcome flow. You want to have an onboarding flow. If these are different, well, the welcome flow is typically going to be welcome flow / onboarding flow. Really, sometimes can be the same thing. It really just depends on, I guess, your specific sales process and how your app is set up. But then you also always want to have a free trial to paid conversion flow if that is what you're running. Like if you're running a trial, trials, what I've seen, you don't want trials to be over 14 days. Typically 14 days and below is where you want to be with trials. Drop-off sequences. So these are essentially sequences that guide people to the activation points. So again, going back to the example of an outreach tool, let's say, so for Drippy, for example, we have drop-off sequences where if someone connects their Twitter account or signs up and then doesn't connect their Twitter account, they get flows. And if they do connect their Twitter account but then they don't find leads, they get flows. If they find leads but then don't start an automation, flows, et cetera, guiding people to, again, start an automation, which is the activation point. Okay, so drop-off sequence is super, super key. And if your current tool doesn't allow you to run drop-off sequences, then you can do that with Flywheel right here in a very easy manner. So just click get started, and then you can be on your way to doing that. Paid user flow. So always after someone pays, you want flows, just to again, welcome people to that flow. There's a bunch of videos on this channel going through like what these flows specifically should look like. See value flows, this is a new one that we've been adding for our users. This flow is essentially giving weekly or monthly recaps. So for outreach tools, you can be like, hey, this week you sent this many emails, LinkedIn messages, Twitter DMs. You were in the top 1%, top 5% of users in terms of reply rate, right? Like whatever. So again, users see value. This does something pretty cool where it increases word of mouth as well, because people are inclined to share those things on LinkedIn and that sort of thing. Onboarding calls, huge. If you have trouble with activation, highly recommend you as the founder hop on onboarding calls yourself. Do it for like a month. You'll book a ton of these. You'll be doing like at least 5 a day. But by the end of the month, you would have hopped on like 150 calls. So you'll have a great idea of, okay, like this is what people struggle with. And then you can build flows around that. You essentially, the idea is you want to know what the activation point is, and then you build guardrails to make sure everyone hits activation as quickly as possible. Handwritten cards is also a great one. There's a bunch of services that allow you to do this. So handwritten cards whenever someone signs up or whenever someone pays are a great idea. Now these are, I guess these are nice to haves, must haves, I guess. But they're not as effective as they used to because everyone does this, okay? And so where the money is actually at in terms of solving the education problem is with this. So everything that you do as a company while users are paying you, okay? So if we go to this chart right here, companies will do a lot of stuff to get companies to pay them and to activate. Users will do a lot of stuff to get people to come back after they've stopped paying. Companies will typically not do much in the middle, which is the most important part because that's it like they've already paid you, right? And so you want them to get the best results possible because again, if we go back to the premise of why we're running SaaS companies, it's because SaaS companies have sticky revenue, right? If a SaaS company doesn't have sticky revenue, if it has no revenue retention, then it's not a valuable SaaS company. And so that's why this part in the middle here is the most important part. And that's what we're going to talk about here now. So the first part is you want to set up event tracking. Now, this is so that you know exactly what users are doing and so that you can use that data to help them not churn. So that's step number one. And you can do this on something like PostHog or Segment, okay? We typically get users set up on PostHog, so that's what we recommend. Number two is you want to build a definition or multiple definitions of active users based on data, okay? So ideally, you want to have different definitions divided up into different segments, divided up into LTV, what plan they're on, and then ICP as well. So different definitions of active use. So what does my perfect user do on a weekly basis, okay? This is typically going to be anywhere between like 10 to 25 different actions that your best users are taking, okay? Super important to have those definitions down. Then the whole goal becomes to get all your inactive users once you have a definition of an active user, we want to, like, you need to know how many of your total users are actually active, okay? Once you know how many are active, you'll know how many are inactive. And then the whole game becomes getting all the inactive users to become active, helping them stay on active as long as possible. If someone goes from active to inactive, catching them before they churn, right? Because over here we have churn. And then so catching them before, like when they go from active to inactive, and then once they've been active for a while, going for that expansion as well, okay? And so how do we do that? You either, like once you have your definition of an active user and you know how many users are active or inactive, then you want to get all your inactive to active, and then once they've been active for a while, you want to get them upsold. The idea here, the important part here, is that you have some sort of AI to intervene or alert your team, okay? So these are two things that Flywheel can do, for example. So once we have all this, we will determine that a specific user or an active user will do these 10 different things on a weekly basis, okay? And let's say one user has been doing that for the last like 3 months consecutively, and then their like usage dropped from logging in 14 times every 7 days, so twice a day, to once every other day. So it went from 14 times to, call it 5 times every 7 days. And you're like, whoa, okay, well, that's weird. and then you realize that they're not loading leads up anymore into your outreach tool, and they're not replying to leads, and their reply rates dropped a ton. Obviously, that means they're at risk, right? Or something must have happened. And so what you want to do is you want to get flagged, but you don't want to just get flagged on conditionals. You don't want to hard code it. You want something that will understand everything that has to do with that specific user, meaning like who they are, what type of business they are, how they typically use the platform, how much they're paying, what their MRR is, what their LTV is, when they started paying, what their like usage patterns were, what they moved to now, and then you can either have that same agent, which again, Flywheel does this, and this is why Flywheel works so well. The agent analyzes and takes all that information into account to then go like intervene and save that user. Now, we've gotten a ton of feedback, and sometimes people want the AI to intervene for like maybe their lower level clients, but for their bigger clients, people that are paying them thousands of dollars every single month, they want us to just alert the CS team. And so this is what you can set up. It's either you have the AI intervene in its entirety and just have the AI do everything, or you have the AI give you all the data, or give your CS team all the data so that your CS team can intervene and save these guys, okay? This is what no one is doing, and this is what every single SaaS company in the world should be doing. And once people set this up, their churn, their educational churn problem completely disappears, okay? It's literally just defining what an active user is and then making sure everyone is active, okay? Now, the same logic applies for expansion revenue. The only thing that changes is what you're tracking. So instead of tracking, instead of tracking stuff that will essentially let you know whether someone's at risk or not, you track stuff that let you know whether or not they're prime, they'd be a good fit for an expansion, right? Or for another plan, for a bigger plan, or maybe a downsell as well. Like being upfront about downsells typically increases LTV, which is crazy, but it does. And so the whole thing is, yes, focus on activation, but I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you already have this set up. You probably already have the post cancellation stuff set up, which in my experience and just based off of everyone we work with, is typically too late and it doesn't really help out that much. This right here, everything that happens in the middle, this is where all the money is made. This is where you save the most amount of money. This is where most of the gains in churn decrease happen while users are users. If you think about it, it makes perfect sense, okay? You got them activated, but then you kind of forgot about them and you don't know what they're doing. You don't know whether they're active or not. You don't know if they're getting results. And it's crazy to me that this happens so often. Like literally no SaaS company knows what a definition of an active user is, and no one knows whether or not their user are actually getting results. So when you get this set up, it's literally a night and day difference. And we haven't had a single case where churn does not decrease when we get this set up. So if you're interested in getting this set up, go to flywheel.cx, first link down below in the description, and we'll get you set up. The other thing here, so the education problem can also turn into an ICP problem, meaning you have wrong messaging, you're attracting the wrong people. So it's not that you have to educate them better. It's more so that they don't know, like they're just not a good fit because they don't know how to use the platform, or they're not like for example, if I give this example, it'd just be way easier to understand. Typically, and this happens a lot with the go-to-market companies, if users want you to start running their businesses for them, that means you have an ICP problem. If you find yourself having to do more and more and more work for them, typically an ICP problem. For example, with Drippy, right? It's like Drippy is a tool that allows you to send Twitter outreach messages. Like that's it, right? But then people want, for just like their $100 subscription, $115 subscription, they don't know they don't have an offer. They don't know how to write scripts. They don't know how to find. So it's like, come on, right? So that's when it's an ICP problem. You need to go up market so you're not dealing with that. And so that's the solution there. Now, messaging problem, and again, this can get into the ICP problem as well. Messaging problems, essentially you're setting the wrong expectations. Users think they're not getting value, the reply to example that I was talking about earlier, or maybe you're targeting the wrong people. So you're attracting the wrong people because of your messaging. Examples of setting the wrong expectation. Let's say your main way of acquiring users is YouTube, okay? And on your YouTube videos, you talk about your best case studies. People watch that and they're like, oh wow, I really want this. But then they use your tool and they don't get anywhere near the results that you showed on your case studies or on your YouTube video. So this happens, but you have to make sure, like it's common, right? And everyone like advertises their best results and their best results without them being the average result. And so really all you have to do here, the solution, is state the facts and tell the truth. If it's not common for that to happen, then just be upfront with it, either on your YouTube or be upfront about it on your YouTube. Something that does this like extremely well is Daniel Fazio does this now, but I think it started off with Jeremy Haynes, where literally at the beginning of the video they're like, it's highly unlikely that you're going to do what I'm showing in this video, or that you're going to achieve the results that I'm showing in this video, right? So just being upfront with that, because like the ballers that are watching, like they get it. They don't need any guarantees. They don't need guarantees that like, they don't need their guarantees because they know they can execute. So if the information you're giving them is valuable, then they'll go with it and they'll use your tool. And so this happens, but you have to make sure that you let people know that this, like, hey, this is one of our best case studies. This isn't a guarantee in any way that you're going to get these results, okay? So this, again, sets the right expectations. Another one is simply like people not knowing what the benchmarks are. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Maybe they watch a YouTube video where you show yourself, obviously, because like you know your platform better, you know exactly how to use the platform. You probably have all the data from users and you see what's working, what's not working. And so maybe you show on a YouTube video you getting a 10% reply rate on a campaign, and then someone buys because of that video. They jump on the platform and they're getting a 4% reply rate. They churn, you hop on a call with them and you ask them like, yo, like why'd you churn? They're like, oh no, I was getting a 4% reply rate. And you're sitting there and you're like, what do you mean? Like, what's wrong with the 4% reply rate? That's an amazing reply rate for cold traffic. And they're like, well, yeah, but it's not 10%, right? Or they simply don't know that 4% is still really, really good because, again, wrong expectation. And so it's just letting people know what the benchmarks are, or on, like whenever you're doing your videos and you're showing people like, hey, yeah, 10%, whatever. It's like, this isn't common. Our average is this percentage. This is more realistic. Realistically, this is more along the lines of what you can expect. But at the end of the day, the solution is just state the facts and tell the truth. And this will solve a lot of the messaging problems or churn with like people thinking that they're not getting value. Okay. Now we're on to the last problem. Honestly, I think I like this one. The price problem. So let's say your price is too high for the value that you are giving people. Price to value discrepancy is too big. Users can make $100, but you're charging them $1,000. Makes no sense. Or another situation is you offer the exact same thing as someone else, like literally there's no differentiating factor, but you're just 10 times as expensive, right? Sometimes that'll work, but for the majority, like for the most part, people will get that you're just charging way more and they'll just go to a competitor, especially in the SaaS world. Okay. So what's the solution? Solution is to test. Just test out your different pricing structures and survey users, okay? What we're looking for from these tests and how you know which one is the winner is we're looking for the most sales at the highest LTV. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean the lowest churn, but this is just kind of a business principle and not just like, hey, let's reduce churn. It's more so like whenever you're thinking about pricing, like this is what makes the most sense for a business. Most sales at the highest LTV, even if churn is a little bit higher. So let's have a look at this. This is a screenshot from Alex Ramose's retention playbook, okay? If you just look at this and you try to come up with what the best price is, if we analyze this, you'll realize that it's the $20. So it's not 10, it's not 100, it's 20. If we go through the chart, we'll see that $10, everyone gets 100 clicks. Conversion rates are going to be different based off of pricing, meaning sales are going to be different. Churn is going to be different as well. But that means the LTV, like even if, so for example here, let's just go through it. $20, the $20 price gets 100 clicks just as like all the other prices, has a 4% conversion rate. It's not the highest or the lowest. And so that means it gets 4 sales, 4% conversion rate on 100 clicks. Let's say this has 10% churn, which isn't the lowest. It's like just as low as the $10 price. So that means the LTV is $200, right? Because you get 4 sales, or rather 10% churn on a $20 price. The LTV is 200. And so the total return is 800. Okay, compared to 500 total return on $10 and 600 total return on $100, even though churn is way higher and conversion rate is way lower. So the best price here is 20. It doesn't have the highest conversion rate. It doesn't have the highest LTV, but it has the highest total return. And so at the end of the day, right, it doesn't have the highest LTV. The highest LTV is going to be the 100, but the highest total return is going to be the 20. And that's what we're looking at. So at the end of the day, really all that matters when it comes to that's really all that matters when it comes to the relationship between pricing and churn. So I guess to round things off in terms of how to solve the price problem, just test. Like, that's literally it. I can't tell you what the perfect pricing is going to be. You just need to test. And this is what you should be optimizing for. We're optimizing for the most sales at the highest LTV. Okay. Closing thoughts. Okay, so as SaaS founders, and this is something I've learned now that I've been in the game for a while, we must over-index for revenue retention. Again, this is what I was talking about. I've now learned after years of being in the game that a software company without retention is not a software company because it's not valuable. What makes a SaaS company valuable is its sticky revenue. If it doesn't have sticky revenue, it is not a valuable SaaS company. You might think that for a while, you can out-acquire the churn problem, and maybe you will for maybe a couple years, but definitely not forever, okay? It's a really, really scary way to live, especially when you run the numbers. You might think that maybe you have 5% churn, and you might think that's not a ton. That means you're losing about 46% of your users every single year, okay? So just think about how much easier your life would be, how much faster you'd be growing if you had a net negative churn, meaning you were growing every month without adding new users, right? It's a scary way to live. If you get behind at all, if you don't acquire as many new users every single month, your business dies, okay? And lastly, if you need help with any of this, go to flywheel.cx. It'll be the first link down in the description. I appreciate you for watching. Hope this was valuable and useful in some capacity. Again, and we will speak soon. Peace.